springs we ride up, me and you. Somewhere Sabaah Folayan, baby, me, you. Baby, it's ride or fly when it's me and you. Baby, it's ride or fly.
Hey everybody, it's your girl Chantelli. From March 12th through March 16th, I was able to attend the South by Southwest conference for the first time, and I had a blast. Tune into the different sessions I attended.
And I won't, but but I do think like these questions are really important to really really deconstruct and understand how we translate journalism, how we translate journalistic practice, and how we also differentiate it within documentary filmmaking too.
Thank you for that. We're gonna get ready for questions, so please, if you have.
Visibility happened, but now you're years later telling the story and trying to find the current narrative to go along with it to kind of bring it all together. The balance between knowing it going into it and discovering it as it happens, and how do you find that kind of current element within a story that primarily happened in the past, essentially?
I think it's a bit of both. For me, with Miles, so the section that you saw, we knew that we wanted to talk about Miles's ballads, and so that we interviewed people about Miles's ballads. Now, did we know what song we were going to use? No. And did we know that the sequence was going to be like that? With those kind of beautiful stills back and forth? No. But we knew that we wanted a sequence about ballads. I think that some of it some of it you find out. The great thing about making docs, either present day docs or historical docs, is the stuff that you find while you're going. And it's not just physical stuff like the guy had the films in his basement. It's the story, like what is the story as you go, and hopefully you have room for the story to change.
Do you find yourself leaning 50% on discovering it, 50% you kind of have something in mind, or does it flow change with every shoot probably?
I think it changes, but you're making the film for a reason. So there's a certain amount of stuff that, a certain amount that's already there, right? So that you're making a film for a reason. One of the things we had to hold on to it with Miles was that, we're making the film because Miles made this beautiful music and that we could go down the path of his abuse. We can go down the path of his drug abuse. But we're here because of the music, right? If Miles was just an abuser of women and a drug addict, we wouldn't have been making the movie. So that's kind of something that we hold on to. You can go down this path, but you have to figure out a way to come back and bring the audience back with you, so they're not like, wait a minute, this guy was such a shit. Wait, I think that's important.
We have time, I think, for one last quick question.
Sure. So I think it's interesting the participant is exec producer on it, or they're working in concert with the filmmaker, right? You all had to enlist estates or the families. I'm wondering how they responded to the final films. We've heard of people dropping out at the last minute and disavowing the film. So yeah, I'm curious, what was the response?
I want to say real quick something I've just been thinking about the whole time. If people are thinking about music docs, I think one of the things you see, especially from these two docs, and from Miles too, is that access is really important. And a lot of times, we want to make a film so bad, and they're like, okay, well, you can come to the rehearsal on Tuesday, and you can shoot us, at dinner on Friday, but and it's not enough, and you can see it in the docs. I think that's really important. So access is really important, and for a filmmaker, it's hard because you want to make the film, and you feel like you don't have a leg to stand on, But again, with Miles, we immediately said, you know, we want to make film warts and all. We want to do this. With Miles, I didn't show the family the film, you know, at all. We got into Sundance, you know, and so I sent the film out the day before we were leaving to go to Sundance, you know, because I was going to Sundance. I was like, I didn't care what they said, and I didn't want to leave. I mean, I didn't want to leave more room for them to mount a campaign against me and against the film. You know, and his nephew, who kind of runs the estate, you know, who we did a lot of events with, tells this story where, you know, I literally sent him the night before.
From the airport.
He was in LA and I was in New York, and he calls me, it's like 3 a.m, and he says, you know, he's crying, he's like, Stanley, the film is so beautiful, and the film is so great. And I was like, great, click. But, you know, I wanted them, you know, you want everybody to like it, you know, but it's not totally necessary, hopefully. Like, you don't sign a contract where it's necessary.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's telling even that you framed your question in terms of participants, and I think that language speaks to something that's happening in documentary, which is evolving from a sort of almost anthropological subject, observer, you know, this false ideas of having objectivity because you don't have the full context and relationships to the community that you're documenting, and moving towards something that honors people's humanity. And for me, it's kind of absurd to imagine, like, I wouldn't let someone just come along and tell a story about my life on their own terms with no input from me, like, you know what I mean? So to ask that of someone is a little wild, and at the same time, there has to be that boundary of, I'm the filmmaker, my reputation is on the line, here are my standards, and for me, and I think it's case by case. In this particular case, both Geneva and his mother were the targets of online harassment because of the narrative that was currently circulating. He died in 2018. So these are people who are still processing their grief, and women who are vulnerable and whose vulnerability is going to be impacted by the narrative that I tell. So it was of the utmost importance for me that Geneva see this cut well before it came out, give me feedback about how she felt about it. You know, having her blessing was for me was mandatory. Like, I was willing to walk away based on how our interactions and how Hulu and the estate were going to support that part of the process. There had to be justice for her to the extent that I could create it through my actions. And then for the family, you know, I wanted that participation, I wanted that trust, and so I had to give. And so I think it's a give and a take, and it's based off of the situation that you're in and how you protect your reputation in an industry that automatically mistrusts the idea that people should be a part of telling their own stories. You know, that's a larger conversation. I think that's a racialized conversation, it's a class conversation. You know, there are a lot of layers to that.
Quick hits, because we're over time.
I mean, it's such a complicated thing to navigate, because there is a thin line between like censorship essentially and also making sure that, like, you're honoring a story, and you're listening to how people want to show themselves, show their communities, represent themselves. And so yeah, I mean, for me, on Mija, on every film that I've done, I've showed the film ahead of time, but those conversations are sometimes not easy, and there are parts of Mija that the family and you know, participants in the film don't like, and yeah, you have to make a really, you know, difficult decision, and you have to be able to stand by the decision, and really you know, reason through it.
Well, we are over time. Please join me in thanking
I want to thank you for tuning in. Be sure to click like on this video, subscribe to my channel, and just share. I love you.
Cash out. Cash out. Baby, it's pride. Me, you. Our spring, we ride out. Me and you. Summers. fall or spring, we ride out, me and you.
Chantelly,